Hello everyone, welcome back to another video where today we're going to be going over some of your theories for the Doctor Who 60th anniversary. As always, I'm joined by Geek Rambles, but before we get into it, if you could do me a teeny tiny little favour and click that subscribe button, I would be really grateful. We're trying to get to 15,000 subscribers as quickly as possible, so if you could help us get there, that'd be ever so much appreciated. Also, go follow me on Twitter if you don't already, as I post my regular Doctor Who opinions and updates over there. But with that said, let's get into the video. Okay, so this first one comes from KaleDon325. The Doctor is wondering why he has essentially been thrown back into his own past, and states that it is wrong. A villain like the Trickster or the Celestial Toymaker may appear. Now, this is quite a brief one, obviously, but can I just say I'd love it if the Trickster was behind it. Personally, as a massive Sarah Jane Adventures fan, I would love a Trickster. I think the Celestial Toymaker is more likely. And I think the reasoning for that is, I don't know whether you've seen, but on set, there were like pictures on billboards advertising a circus. So people have drawn that connection because in the original Celestial Toymaker story, people were, they had like a bunch of like, toys, and one of them was like a bunch of clowns and stuff. So people have drawn that connection. So that probably is more likely, but I personally, a Trickster return would be great. And he would fit this story so well.
Yeah.
Just given that the 10th Doctor and the Trickster have a little bit of history as well, courtesy of, which one is it? Wedding of Sarah Jane Smith is the one where they
where they zap what's his name? Nigel Havers away,
Yeah. So I personally love it if the Trickster was behind it. I don't think it'll happen. He's just one that's frankly overdue an appearance in the main show, I would say.
Yeah, it certainly puts my flux theory in the shade, doesn't it? I would love to see the return of the Trickster Brigade. Sorry, I would love to see that happen. I agree with you. I feel like the Celestial Toymaker would be a better fit, but it would make it would really. I think it'd be a fan service, but great fan service if it was Trickster.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I think it's just he's the sort of character that like I think you could do so much with, and it's such a cool idea. So yeah, I'd love to see a trick, or at least a version of the trick, like akin to like the monks, or something like them. You know,
that's a good idea. Yeah, and it speaks. I mean, that that monks episode, the whole 3-parter actually was just so amazing. I think it'd be great to bring something like that back.
On me, that one. It's one of those ones I didn't take too massively initially, but it's one that I've rewatched and sort of come to really like the concept of, like them putting themselves into time at the beginning and basically convincing humanity, oh, we've always been it. I like that a lot.
I like that as well. Yeah, good theory.
Yeah, that's a good start. So this one comes from Coulson XD, and it says, time is breaking or broken, and the Doctor is reliving selves and events, but with his current 10's mind. Okay, that's quite a complicated one. My only, so with time breaking, I'd assume that if you're going to do that, it would make sense to follow it on from the events of Flux, because obviously I could be completely wrong. The Vanquish is a whole thing, but if I'm remembering correctly, time basically gets freed in the end of that story, and it just sort of flies away, and we haven't really had a follow-up on that. So maybe time as the literal entity being free is the result of time breaking down and allows these things to happen. That might be quite cool. If time's not being held in place anymore, maybe that's how time breaks, basically.
Got you. Okay, and then with the theory, so we're reliving events, but in 10's form.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's quite complex. Yeah,
that is quite complex. I dig it. I think.
Yeah, me too.
My only thing with it, would it be too contingent? I mean, I suppose I'm adding in the Flux stuff, but like, I feel like time breaking's not something you can just chuck in. So I feel like if you were going to do that, you might tie it into Flux, but then I'm not sure whether they want to particularly tie these specials to the previous era or the next era. I get the feeling they're going to be sort of their own little contained thing, if that makes sense. Obviously, there's going to be some level of continuity and references to other things, but maybe that one's too complex if you're getting where I'm coming from.
I mean, it's a lot. It could be a series arc. I could totally, see that. That's a difficult one because I feel as though, especially when the Doctors say themselves, whether it be Eccleston or Tennant, I don't think they've done it after that, but that once something happens, they become part of events.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I know it happened in the 50th where, you know, they all got together and they all said they were going to forget. I just can't quite see this.
Yeah, no,
not that it's a
I'm
bad
with you.
theory at all. I'm not going to slate it, but I just can't really see that happening.
My other question would be, if it's from the perspective of Ten's mind, does that mean he can only see things that happened before 10? So, i.e., classic Who plus 9 and War and whatever, like he can't see 11, 12, 13 events happening. Because that would kind of rule out other Doctors and cameos from other eras if that was the case.
Yeah,
and I don't know whether I'd be a big fan of that if it was like completely cutting off any chance. Obviously, I think as time's gone on, it's more likely that it's mainly 10, which I'm fine with, but I would like to see cameos from the others. And this would kind of go some way of basically making it so that can't happen, or at the very least, it would be difficult for it to happen. So a good theory, but not one that I think they'll go with. Not that it's a bad idea, it's just
no,
one
it's
that
not.
I can't imagine being what they end up doing, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense to me. Yeah, no, not a bad theory at all. I just feel like it's a bit too much, and it would be, especially for a special, I want to be able to follow it in a way that I can comprehend. And I just feel like that would be just too much. And not that I'm one for lore either, but, you know, is that going to sort of tie into a bit of law breaking almost? I'm not sure. Yeah.
I think as well, as you said, you're totally right. With the special, you kind of want to be able to follow it pretty easily. And I think with the reintroduction of Tennant and Tate, it's a very deliberate action. I think we've spoken about this before, to get the general public back on board. Yeah. And I think them complicating it with like, okay, so it's Ten's mind, but they're reliving events, but time, obviously there's going to be something going on with time, I think. Or there's going to be some reason why he's in this face again. There's going to be some logical reason behind it. But I think it's got to be one that's the general audience are going to be able to understand well enough, if you get me, for them to grasp it. So yeah, I agree with you on that completely.
It'd be a fantastic Big Finish story, though, I think.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Make that happen.
This one comes from Wolfgang Bailey, says, I think time has gone wrong somehow, but also the METACRISIS Doctor has been pulled into our universe and has to work out how to get back to his Rose. Hence shock when Donna shouts Rose in that one scene in filming. The time stuff will be how Donna remembers, but will not be permanent. Okay. That's interesting. I like the idea that the Doctor, it's the METACRISIS Doctor, because it would make sense if he was looking for Rose. And so when Donna shouts Rose to Yasmin Finney, who it's all but confirmed at this point is Donna's daughter, that would make sense for that like level of surprise. I mean, I feel like it would work on the level, even if it was just 10 though. Like, I don't know whether it needs to be METACRISIS for that reveal to work. I do like the idea of the METACRISIS being pulled in, but again, it's that thing, is it too reliant on previous knowledge for like audiences? Do you know what I mean?
Potentially, but I especially very, very, the problem they're going to have, and I'll put all of my faith in RTD, I honestly do, but the issue that I think any writer would have when it comes to a character in a story arc as complex as Donna's is that they're going to have to be really careful how they do that. And what I like about this particular theory is that there will be a way for her to remember, but it not be permanent, so that she doesn't have to die. But at the same time, to remember anything, he said, just for a second. I mean, we had it in part 1, End of Time, part 1 and 2, where she did remember snippets.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's something about that where I just feel like you have to be so careful. I would like it personally to be 10. I feel like METACRISIS Doctor is kind of done. And I'd like him to stay in that universe. Not that I think it's a bad idea. I just think that was a lovely send-off for 10 and Rose. Leave it as that.
Admittedly, it would be a cool workaround for explaining Tennant's age. It'd be like,
it would. Can age, can't it? Yeah.
Age is like humans. That makes perfect sense. But yeah, I agree with you. I think part of me does think it's because there's a theory that we're going to get onto here, and I think it's the most likely one out of the ones we've read so far. But part of me does think they're going to be the incarnation coming on from Jodie somehow. I know we've spoken about that before, but I think it's difficult because on the one hand, I agree with you. I want it to be 10. But on the other hand, I kind of like how we're kind of progressing the character in a way. Does that make sense? It's kind of like a sidestep interesting little novelty thing. I don't know. It's an interesting debate, and obviously we're never going to truly know until it's seen on screen how it's going to work. But right now, I think what's great about this is that it leaves us with a lot of questions going in, which is exciting. You know, that in itself, and it leads to videos like this where you can talk about different versions. So this next one that I was saying is quite likely comes from Funeral Gay, and it says, Jodie regenerates, it goes a bit wonko. 14 is David Tennant, possibly caused by the chameleon arch being opened, like a memory interrupted the regeneration. Villain is the celestial Toymaker. I hope in my heart of hearts that this all goes down without taking up a numbered regen. Okay, so this one to me is like the most likely one. I don't know about the chameleon arch being factored in. I mean, it could be, because we've seen it in the Chibnall era before with Ruth. She chameleon arched herself into a human, didn't she? And that's how we meet her in Fugitive Virginia. So it's definitely possible that could play into it. More likely, I think, because you know how, I think I've spoken about this to you before, but when Jodie's in the cubicle thing, it looks like she's regenerating in the centenary. People have suggested that's actually her getting her memories back, and that could lead to a mess up in the regeneration somehow that leads to her getting one of her older faces. That'd make sense to me, I think. Obviously, it depends how it's justified. But yeah, the other thing with this is not taking up a numbered slot. I do have an idea for that. It's basically, what if they filmed two versions of the regeneration? One of them is into David Tennant, one of them is into Ncuti Gatwa. The David Tennant regeneration is like an alternate universe timeline thing, which we follow in the specials. And the specials is basically correcting the timeline back to where it should be with Ncuti. I think that could work. And then you could have the payoff to the end of the specials would be the proper full regeneration from Jodie into Ncuti. That way you don't mess up the numbering, but you can also get like a little side story with Tennant. I know this is a very long-winded explanation, but I think that could work quite well.
I love that. It was like you literally just read my mind. So I have been really passionate, especially I think it was a couple of videos we did, and I said I do not want it to be a regeneration into Tennant. I don't want him to be the 14th. If there's one thing I've learned about myself throughout the past few weeks is that I have no idea what I want, and what I think I want is irrelevant, because to think that would be a alternate generation, which could be, not going to obviously go with the 6B theory, that's not even a thing that I'm going to go into.
That's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, an uncontrollable can of worms. But this could be almost not mocking, that would be the wrong word, but almost making light of that and going, do you know what, let's actually try this out. Let's actually make this a thing. To have a regeneration where they go back, because it's been canonized now that you can go back to a previous regeneration, and to see that would be absolutely fine with me. I'm not too bothered about the numbering thing. Now that, as far as we know, unless they can retcon the Doctor's at the time as child, we can have as many as we need. We don't really need numbers. So I am all for that, and I would love to see a side story. Is that even the right word?
I think that's how I would describe it.
A side story where it does go to 10. But would it be 10 as a regeneration, or would it be going back to revisit that incarnation? I think it would have to be a fresh regeneration, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be as a regeneration, but like, I don't know, maybe somehow they could have the same, because it looks like from set they act the same way. So maybe, because we talk about maybe the memories influencing it, maybe the memories do more than just change the appearance back, but they give back the same, mannerisms, style, personality. Maybe even the Doctor believes that they're still the 10th Doctor for a bit somehow, and they're like, oh, hang on, why is everyone older? Why is my TARDIS different? What's going, like that sort of thing. You could do that. So that's a really interesting theory, though. The idea of the whole thing about it being like a memory interrupted the regeneration. I like that.
Again, I'm not just challenging anything for the sake of challenging it. But when it comes to the memories, when you say interrupted, I'm speaking to the person who did the theory. But do you mean as in it interrupts the memory so that whoever this incarnation is, whether it be 10 or 14 or however you want to number it, and it's Tennant, doesn't necessarily mean that he gets the memories that Whittaker's Doctor has?
Oh, I see what you mean. Possibly.
Because that would kind of just, taking a complicated story that we've had already and just ramping it up. And I just kind of, like you said before, of course you want references to what's happened previously, you want a little bit of influence, but we can't really bank on that because we need to try and wipe the slate clean.
I think maybe I doubt that the events of the centenary are going to be mentioned much, if at all, in these specials. So I think the memories of the 13th Doctor in regards to like the timeless child and that, I reckon they're going to be pretty much like not a factor. Or maybe, I think they're not going to be a factor. I think when they say interrupted the regeneration, it would work a similar way to what the Metacrisis was, where maybe Jodie starts regenerating, a bunch of memories are like flooded into her head or something like that, but that results in the regeneration changing into a previous incarnation. In the same way that with the Metacrisis, Tennant starts regenerating, but he channels the energy into his hand, therefore becoming Tennant. It could be a similar deal to that. And I think that could work.
That could work.
In theory.
Definitely. Yeah.
We've seen it happen before, and with this incarnation. So it makes sense, I guess. You know, like, there's a lot of ideas. And the exciting thing about this is, I think RTD is going to come up with a cool reason for this. I don't think it's just going to be, oh, they're David Tennant again. anyway, we move on. I think it's going to be an integral part of the story, which is really interesting. But this next one, because we spent quite a while dissecting this next one comes from Lorenzo, and it says, my theory is David is leading the first two episodes. I think we are getting an anniversary that will start with the 2022 Christmas special, and the final one will air on November 2023, and it will be a multi-Doctor story with Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi. Now, there's a lot to go over there, but there is some backing to the idea of there being a Christmas special. I covered a while back one of the filming sets, and they were filming in Camden Market, but like all these lights were on, and it did look like Christmas lights. Now, I know what people are going to say. They're going to say, oh, but those lights are always there. Yeah, okay. But if they didn't want them there, they could just switch them off or film somewhere else. The whole vibe of those filming images looked very festive. And also in one of the other images, we see Donna carrying packages. And all of this is kind of, and I think on one of the posters, the dates are dated for like December. So all of this gives the vibe that a Christmas special is on the cards. I really want it to happen. Can you imagine?
So thrilled if they got their Christmas slot back. I'd be over the moon.
Especially this year as well. Can you imagine, right? We watch the centenary, we think, well, no more Doctor Who for a year, and then bam, returns Christmas 2022. You'd be like, what? Let's go. That is mental.
When Christmas specials were on, I mean, me and my family like to get a little bit woozy on Christmas Day, and I literally will stop everything, and I'll say, right, we're all just sitting down. You do, if you don't want to watch it, absolutely fine, go and have your shots or whatever you need to do. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching it at the time, and it's just such a good vibe. I mean, it's goofy and it's a bit silly, and you know, there's some things in there where you think, oh god, but it's such a good, nice feeling. If they've got that Christmas slot back, I'll be so thrilled. I feel like RTD would want that back as well. He doesn't want to do New Year's ones.
Absolutely. The thing is with New Year's, I've always felt this way. New Year's is kind of a just naff day, and like the Doctor Who special as a result kind of feels more naff. I don't know what it is. There's something magical about Doctor Who being on Christmas Day, even if the material isn't the best. Like it's elevated by it being on Christmas. I don't know whether that makes sense. But I think as well, given that Tennant was the Doctor that pioneered that age of like Christmas specials, like his first story was the Christmas Invasion. Like that was the first Christmas special Doctor Who. Obviously, you're not counting like Feast of Stephen or all that stuff. We're counting like proper Christmas episode. He was the first one to do it, and they were the things that like led to Doctor Who. They were a big part of Doctor Who being massive deals again. Like some of the most highest rated Doctor Who, like in terms of viewing figures, Doctor Who episodes remain the Christmas specials. I think the highest one is the one with Kylie Minogue for obvious reasons, Voyage of the Damned. But and then you've got like that awesome trailer of like 10 riding the TARDIS with, have you seen that? The BBC One thing where he's like riding on the TARDIS with reindeer pulling it. It's It's great.
No.
Have you not seen that? I'll put it in the video. When you watch the video, you'll see it, but it's absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, I'd love that tradition to come back. In regards to Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi, I want those two desperately. And I think if they were going to do 3 specials with the final one coinciding with the anniversary day, that one of all of them would make the most sense to bring in the past Doctors. Like, okay, sure, have your first 2 be Tennant and Tate, get the casuals on board, but for the anniversary day, bring in a couple more. I think that would work quite well.
Yes, it's not a theory, it's more just let's throw this one out there. Because it's so heavily focused on Tennant and Tate, which I'm very, very happy about. And this is for my own head thing where I just want this so badly.
Yeah.
Eccleston has said before, I will come back if it's just me.
More Big Finish production stuff. Are there any other Doctors, past or current, that you'd actually really like to collaborate with on one of those projects?
I'd have to dig them up. No, I've never been a fan of multi-Doctor stories. When I worked on the series, I had really strong ideas, surprise, about what works and what doesn't. And I always think that multi-Doctor stories are a bit of a cash-in and a bit of exploitation. Creatively, they never worked for me. I looked at the script for the 50th anniversary and I thought as soon as I said I wasn't doing it, it got better. Because, well, if I'm not in it, it's better. But, the creation of the War Doctor introduced a whole new facet to the canon. I know it made some people anxious, the fundamentalists, but, so, no, I mean, the father of us all is William Hartnell, but the greatest Doctor is Jodie Whittaker, so... No, the Ninth Doctor in particular is a one-man band, definitely. So he doesn't work with other Doctors. If you want me back, you get me on my own.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if we had one where we had Tennant and Tate for, like you said, a couple of episodes, bring in Smith and Capaldi, I think those 3 as a dynamic would be hilarious, because Capaldi just would not want to deal with those 2, being the way that they are. But then we have a little trailer, and it is Eccleston coming back to sort of bring everything together in terms of the Rose thing. Because I just want it so bad. I know it won't happen, I get it, but he said before, I will never do Doctor Who again, I will never be associated with Doctor Who again. Then he said, well, I'll do Big Finish, because I think that's a good idea. Then he said, well, I would consider coming back to Doctor Who if it was on my own.
Yeah.
There's something that could happen. I know it won't, but I would just love it.
I really want what you're saying to happen. And it's the sort of thing of interestingly, one of the Reddit sort of things that I think is probably not accurate now was basically at the end of the centenary there was going to be a kind of MCU style post-credit scene in which the 10th Doctor's on some form of David Tennant's Doctor, at least, whoever it is on some sort of battlefield or something, really, really struggling. And then very similar to Avengers Endgame, a portal would open and the Ninth Doctor's hand would basically come out, pull him back up. Christopher Eccleston walks out, and then a couple more portals open, and the rest of the New Who lot come out. So Smith, Capaldi, and I believe McGann, and then that's your tease for the 60th, which would be sick, but I don't think that'll happen. But
I don't think it would happen, and I'm not saying we need a full episode of Eccleston. No. Just a cameo would just make my whole Doctor Who dream.
It was a case of, because you know how in the 50th he never completed the regeneration. Once the Doctor regenerates, they have their whole I'm this person. Incorporate that somehow, maybe a flashback for 10, where he's starting on like the New Who journey again, and he gets flashback scenes to Eccleston's regeneration, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That
So,
even something like that would be neat, just because
Cameron
it's
would
always
feel that for me though. I'll be honest, he would.
Like it's always bugged me that with the War Doctor regeneration, it cuts off just before you can see Eccleston's. They couldn't get Eccleston to film the scene, so like a sort of scene with him that's kind of before he meets Rose, because we know that that's a possible thing as well, because the Big Finish setting their audios pre Rose, like a scene like that would be cool. But there is another theory that sort of coincides with your idea, and it's one that I've seen sort of posited a lot, especially before we have the official announcements. Each special, this comes from Striking Back, each special will be a different Doctor that builds up to a proper 60th anniversary episode. I'd really like that. I think that would be a really cool way of celebrating the show as a whole.
Yeah.
My only thing is, given how much we've seen of the Tennant squad, I don't know why I called them the Tennant squad. You know what I mean? Like the characters from his era.
The gang.
Wilf, Sylvia, Donna, all of that. I can't see that being a thing. But with that being said, they are filming incredibly early, so maybe there can be multiple episodes. Maybe we have just seen the start. That is a possibility. But the more of filming I'm seeing, the more I'm sort of thinking Tennant is going to be the focal point. As much as I'd like, you get an episode with, as you maybe said before, Eccleston, Tennant, Smith, Capaldi, maybe not Whittaker because she has just given birth, which congratulations, Julie. Because I haven't said that publicly, I don't think, And then maybe you end it off with them all coming together and Shooty maybe makes his first appearance then, right at the very end. That would be cool, but it's becoming less and less likely as the days go by, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's someone, in fact, I won't word it the way that they did, but I posted something similar on Twitter, and someone said, a Whovian dream, I'm just paraphrasing here, a Whovian dream is still just a dream sometimes. And I was like, yeah, I know, but it's nice to have that. I mean, for God's sake, I thought I wanted, Joe Martin to be the next Doctor. I thought I wanted X, Y, and Z. And I didn't want any of that in the end. So I might be proved wrong completely again and actually think it's probably better just with Tennant. But I would love to see Smith. He's my absolute favourite Doctor on the planet. Too. Yeah, we do share that in common. And Capaldi, like I said, their dynamic with the three of them would just make such great TV. It would just
be wonderful.
Yeah, it would be so.
I would love it. My rational part of my head is going probably not now.
No.
My fan part of my head is going, please, that would be awesome. But I think that's going to wrap up everything for this one. But if you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a like. Comment down below your own theories for the 60th anniversary, and I will see you later. Goodbye, everyone. Shout out to Debs Iona, Shane Smith, Ree Keffin, Seb Lowndes, Jay Monroe, Hash Shandycoot, Patrick Mewson, Simon Ashley, Steve Safaro, Andrew Townsend, Alex Robbins, Michael Dykes, Paul Bryden, Sam Yates, Michael Rhodes, Jerry the Meerkat, Heretic, Bibliotecaria Nerd, Cameron Jefferson, John M, Meta-Hoovian, Ben Freeman, Andrew Evanson, Lucy, Josh Keck, JM97, Captain Obvious, Gallifrey and Rob, Cliff's Random Silliness. If you want to become a member, feel free to do so. It really helps out. You get exclusive posts, shout outs in every video, and even your own badge and custom emojis to use.